It was just another ordinary morning in a quiet, unassuming diner on Fifth Street. The smell of sizzling bacon filled the air, and the clink of silverware against ceramic plates punctuated the otherwise calm rhythm of the day. Sarah, a young waitress, moved between the tables with a grace that seemed to come from years of experience. She was always quick with a smile, always anticipating the needs of her customers. It was a simple life, but it was hers. The diner was small but cozy, with worn wooden booths and checkered floors that had seen years of foot traffic. The old jukebox in the corner played the same familiar songs every day, and the constant hum of coffee machines and sizzling eggs created a comforting atmosphere. To most, it was a place to grab a quick meal and go. To Sarah, it was home. Sarah had worked here for nearly 2 years, and though the work was hard, she loved it. She loved the people. The elderly couple who came in every morning for their coffee, the businessman who always ordered eggs and toast, and the single mother who would come in after her long shifts, her children in tow, looking for a place to unwind. Sarah had always been the type to go the extra mile. It wasn't enough to just serve food. She wanted to make sure that each customer felt like they mattered. She had learned early on that kindness went a long way. She noticed the small things. The extra napkin someone might need, the refill of coffee without them having to ask, the way a smile could lift someone's day. It was on one such morning, when the diner was full of its usual clientele, that a man walked in. The door's bell jingled softly, and for a moment, no one paid him any attention. But Sarah couldn't help but notice him. He wasn't like the other customers. He didn't walk in with a sense of urgency or bravado. He simply walked in, alone, with the kind of calm that made you take notice. He was dressed in a simple black t-shirt, faded jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face, obscuring his features. His hands were in his pockets as he made his way to the booth in the far corner. His posture relaxed but distant. He wasn't trying to stand out, but there was something about the way he carried himself that seemed different. Sarah hadn't been working here long enough to recognize him at first, but there was something in the way he sat down at the booth, something that made her pause. It wasn't just his quiet demeanor. It was the air around him. The space seemed to shift as he entered it, almost like the world had quieted down just for him. Sarah continued her work, but her eyes kept drifting back to the man. He hadn't ordered yet, so she busied herself with the rest of the tables. But something tugged at her, a quiet intuition that told her this man was more than he appeared to be. Sarah was still caught in the rhythm of her shift when she finally walked over to the man's booth. She had to make sure he was well taken care of, like she always did with her customers. But as she got closer, she noticed something unusual. The man was staring into his cup of coffee, his eyes vacant, as though he were lost in thought. There was a sadness to him that Sarah couldn't ignore. "Can I get you anything to start with?" she asked, her voice light and friendly. But her words were meant to do more than just offer a menu. She wanted to offer him a moment of warmth, something to break the sadness she saw in his eyes. The man looked up slowly, his gaze meeting hers. There was a moment of recognition, but it was fleeting. "Just coffee," he said quietly, his voice soft but not harsh. Sarah smiled, her eyes softening as she nodded. "Sure, one coffee coming right up." As she turned to walk away, she couldn't help but feel that something significant had just happened. It was as if she had been given a small, fleeting moment of connection with this stranger, and it left her with a strange sense of fulfillment. She returned with the coffee, setting it gently in front of him. The man's hands hovered over the cup for a moment before he finally wrapped his fingers around the warm ceramic. His eyes met hers again, and for the briefest of moments, there was a flicker of gratitude in his expression. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's rare to see kindness like that." Sarah was taken aback. "It's no trouble at all," she said, smiling. "I just want to make sure you're comfortable." She didn't know why she said that. It wasn't something she typically said, but the words felt right in the moment. From across the room, the manager, Rick, watched the interaction with narrowed eyes. He had been observing Sarah for some time now, and something about the way she treated this man made him uneasy. Rick had always run the diner with an iron fist. Everything had to be efficient, impersonal, and straightforward. This kindness, this subtle connection Sarah had with her customers, was something he couldn't understand. He had noticed the way she had taken her time with this man, the way her smile had lingered a little longer than necessary, and for some reason it bothered him. To Rick, kindness was a waste of time. He didn't see the need for all the attention to detail. He just wanted the place to run smoothly. As he watched them, he became increasingly frustrated. "She's too soft," he muttered under his breath. "Too personal. This isn't a charity." Sarah's attention to the little things, the way she made people feel seen, heard, and cared for, was something that Rick had never understood. He had been running this diner for years, and he knew how to keep things running smoothly, but Sarah's way was different, and he didn't like it. Sarah continued to check in on the man throughout her shift, offering small gestures of kindness, a refill of his coffee, an extra napkin when his hands were full, a smile that told him he wasn't invisible. She didn't know it then, but these small acts of kindness were weaving a thread of connection between them. At one point, Sarah noticed the man was looking at the menu again, but his face had a furrowed brow, as though he couldn't decide what to order. The diner was busy, and Sarah had a lot to do, but something about his indecision tugged at her. Instead of rushing off to another table, she walked back to his booth. "Are you sure you don't want anything else?" she asked, her voice soft. "It's not just about the food. I can bring you something comforting if you need it." The man looked up at her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes softened as he gave a small nod. "Maybe just some toast," he said. "Nothing fancy." Sarah smiled, coming right up. It wasn't just about the toast, it was about the moment. She had recognized that sometimes people didn't need much to feel better. Sometimes they just needed someone to see them, to care about their well-being. And Sarah, without even thinking, had done that for him. As Sarah finished her shift, the manager called her into the office. She had no idea what was coming. Rick's mood had been darker than usual that day, and Sarah had sensed the unease in the air. "I need to talk to you about today," Rick said, his voice cold and formal. Sarah nodded, unsure of what to expect. She had done nothing wrong, but the tension in the air was unmistakable. "You've been too soft with that customer," Rick began, his words sharp. "You've been giving him special treatment, and that's not how we run things here. I've seen you do this before with other customers. It's unnecessary." Sarah tried to explain, but Rick was relentless. "I don't want this type of attitude here. This isn't a charity. You're here to serve food, not to make people feel special." Sarah's heart sank as she listened. She had always tried to make the diner a welcoming place, but now she was being told that her kindness wasn't wanted. It was as if her very nature was being criticized. "You're fired," Rick said flatly. "You're just not a good fit for this place." Just as Sarah was gathering her things, ready to leave, the man who had been sitting in the corner booth stood up. His movement was slow but purposeful, and there was a new energy about him. He walked toward the office, his gaze steady. Rick's face went pale when he saw him approaching. "What is this?" Rick demanded. "Who are you?" The man stood tall, his voice low but powerful. "I'm the owner of this diner," he said, his words cutting through the tension in the room. Sarah froze. She couldn't believe it. The man she had been kind to, the one she had seen as nothing more than a quiet stranger, was the owner. "You've been treating her poorly," the owner continued, his gaze turning to Rick. "And I don't tolerate that kind of behavior in my establishment." The owner turned to Sarah, his face softening with a smile. "You didn't know, but I saw everything," he said gently. "You were kind to me when you didn't have to be. I want to make it right." Sarah blinked, her chest tightening as the weight of the moment hit her. She had done nothing but show kindness, and it had led her here, being offered not just a second chance, but a fresh start. "I want you to work for me, with respect and dignity. No one should be treated the way Rick treated you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, barely able to speak. Yes, I'd love that." The next day, Sarah returned to the diner, a fresh sense of purpose in her step. The owner had kept his word. She was no longer under the thumb of Rick's cruelty. She was treated with respect, and the atmosphere in the diner had changed. The regulars noticed it, and so did Sarah. She felt valued, and for the first time she felt like she truly belonged. It wasn't just the job that had changed. It was the way she saw the world now. Kindness had brought her here, and she knew that it would be her guiding principle moving forward. Sarah had learned a valuable lesson that day, a lesson that would stay with her for the rest of her life. Kindness was never wasted. No matter how small the gesture, it had the power to change not only her own life but the lives of those around her. She had acted out of a simple desire to make someone stay better, and in doing so, she had changed her own fate. The diner would never be the same again. Neither would Sarah.